My name is Elena Carter. I'm 36, a commercial banker in Ohio. On my daughter's 5th birthday, my father stood in front of our entire family, lifted a glass like he was about to give a toast, and instead erased her. He said she wasn't a real grandchild. Not quietly, not privately, but loud enough for everyone, neighbors, relatives, even our pastor, to hear. And my mother? She stood right there and said nothing. My daughter, Lily, was holding a piece of cake in her small hands, frosting smeared across her thumb. She looked up at me with those wide, searching eyes, and asked a question no child should ever have to form. Mom, am I not real? I didn't scream. I didn't break down. I picked her up, carried her to the car, and drove home. And on Monday morning, I opened a file I hadn't touched in 4 years. But before I take you there, let me bring you back to the morning it all started. Lily woke up before sunrise. She had already dressed herself in the soft pink dress she'd chosen weeks earlier, the one with tiny embroidered flowers across the hem. A paper crown sat crooked on her head, and just in case, she had clipped a plastic tiara behind it, like a backup plan. Mom, she asked, bouncing on her toes, is today my whole day? I smiled and brushed her hair back. Your whole day, sweetheart, from morning till night. My husband Daniel stood at the kitchen island, ironing his shirt. He looked up, met my eyes, and gave a quiet smile. He always knew when to stay silent, and when silence said everything. The pink bicycle we bought her was wedged into the back, wrapped in ribbons I had to redo twice because I kept getting them wrong. The cake sat in the passenger seat, 3 tiers, buttercream frosting, her name written in gold across the top. It cost more than it should have. It was worth every rupee, every dollar, every second. On the way to my parents' house, Lily sang happy birthday to herself over and over again in the back seat. Daniel drove, I watched the road, and something in my chest tightened when we turned onto my parents' street. My brother's truck was already there, an hour early. That never happened. The house looked exactly the same. White siding, black shutters, the same line of pine trees my father planted the year I was born. 4 years ago that house almost disappeared, and I was the reason it didn't. My mother opened the door before we even reached the porch. There's my girl, she said, pulling me into a hug. Warm, familiar. Then she stepped back and looked at Lily. Her hand rested briefly, lightly, on Lily's shoulder. Hi, sweetie, she said. That was it. No hug, no excitement, just acknowledgement. Lily waited for more. It never came. Inside, the house buzzed with noise. TV on full volume, my brother sprawled across the couch, kids running everywhere, but something felt off. Like everyone was waiting for something. Or avoiding it. I placed the cake on the table. That's when I saw it. A folder. Labeled. Estate documents. My mother saw me notice. She moved quickly, too quickly, snatched it, and tucked it away like it had never been there. I didn't ask, but I remembered. 4 years earlier, I had stood in my daughter's nursery when my father called me. The bank's taking the house, he said. We have 30 days. I asked how much. $180,000. I didn't hesitate, but I didn't act blindly either. I called a lawyer, and I made it official. A loan, a contract, signed, noted, secured. My parents agreed. They called it a formality. I called it protection. They paid for 3 years. Then, nothing. 2 missed payments. I noticed. I said nothing. I decided I'd bring it up after Lily's birthday. That afternoon, the backyard filled with people. Kids running, plates clattering, laughter floating in the air. But the details didn't lie. My nephews had piles of expensive gifts, big boxes, carefully wrapped, meaningful. My daughter? An envelope. Inside it, a single $20 bill. No card, no message, nothing. I stood still, watching, listening. And then I heard my brother. The house is already decided, he told someone near the grill. Keep it in the family. At 3:15, we gathered for the cake. Lily stood at the table, hands clasped behind her back, exactly the way she had practiced. 5 candles flickered in front of her. I lit the last one. Everyone leaned in. I started to sing, "Happy Birthday to," a glass slammed down, hard, sharp enough to cut through everything. My father stood up. "I want to say something first." The yard went silent. Even the kids stopped moving. He raised his glass slightly. "A real grandchild," he said slowly, "is one who carries your blood." My stomach dropped. "And that," he gestured toward Lily without even looking at her directly, "is not a real grandchild." Silence, heavy, crushing. "Only my son's boys are in my will," he continued. "I want everyone to be clear." I looked at my mother. She stared at the table, didn't move, didn't speak, didn't say my daughter's name. And then, Lily lifted the candle lighter, her tiny hands steady. "Mom," she said softly, "can I blow it out?" I bent down beside her, wrapped my hand around hers, and together we blew out the candles. I didn't look at my father, because if I had, I wouldn't have stayed quiet. I cut the cake. I served everyone. I smiled, and underneath the table I sent Daniel one message. 15 minutes. We leave. No scene. He nodded. As we walked out, my mother grabbed my arm. "Don't be mad," she whispered. "That's just how he is." I looked at her. Really looked. "I'm not mad," I said quietly. "I understand exactly what just happened." We drove in silence. 3 miles down the road, Lily finally asked, "Mom, am I not a real grandchild?" Daniel pulled the car over. I turned around, unbuckled, and faced her. "You are real," I said. "You are mine. You are your dad's. You are part of this family." "Then Grandpa is wrong?" I held her gaze. "Yes," I said, "he's wrong." That night, after she fell asleep, I opened my laptop. I found the folder, the contract, the missed payments, the clause, 2 missed installments, and everything becomes due. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I sent one email. "We need to talk, tomorrow." Because my father had made something very clear that day. And now, so would I. By Monday morning, I wasn't a daughter. I was a banker again. And bankers don't deal in feelings. They deal in documents. At 8:04 a.m., I walked into my office, set my bag down, and opened the file I hadn't touched in years. Family loan, 2021. 4 documents, 1 truth. My father hadn't just humiliated my daughter. He had defaulted. At 9:12, I called Mark Ellison, the attorney who drafted the original agreement. He picked up on the second ring. "Elena," he said, calm as always. "It's been a while." "It has," I replied. "I need you to open that file again." Pause. "What changed?" he asked. I didn't hesitate. He did. We met that evening in his office. Same desk, same files, same man who had looked me in the eye 4 years ago and said, "Protect your kindness with paperwork." Back then, I thought it sounded harsh. Now, it sounded like survival. Mark flipped through the documents slowly. 2 missed quarterly payments, he said. "That triggers acceleration." "I know. That means the full amount is due immediately." "I know." He looked up at me. "This won't stay private, Elena. Once we file, it becomes public record." I held his gaze. So did what he said to my daughter. He nodded once. "Then we do this properly." The notice went out the next morning. Certified mail. Legal language, no emotion. My parents received it 2 days later. I know, because my phone didn't stop ringing. Calls, messages, voicemails. 37 times. Not once, not a single time, did either of them ask about Lily. My mother finally got through that night. "Elena," she said, voice shaking, "what is this?" "It's a notice of default." "You're threatening us?" "No," I said calmly. "I'm enforcing a contract." "That was family money." "No," I corrected. "That was a loan. You signed it." Silence. "Then, your father didn't mean what he said." I closed my eyes for a moment. "Did you say her name?" I asked. "What?" "During the apology, did you say Lily's name?" Another silence. Longer this time. "You know what I meant." "I'm asking what you said." Her voice hardened. "You're making this difficult." "No," I said quietly. "I'm making it clear." 3 days later, my brother showed up at my office. Angry, loud, desperate. "You're destroying this family," he snapped. I checked my watch. "You have 1 minute," I told him. "You can't do this to Dad. He did this to himself. You owe us." I met his eyes. "No," I said. "You owe me." He froze. "You took money that wasn't yours," I continued. "You sat there while my daughter was insulted. And now you want mercy?" His jaw tightened. "You've changed," he muttered. "I grew up," I replied. The truth came out that same week. A missing $60,000 from the original loan. Gone. Not into the house. Into my brother's gambling debt. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I simply added it to the file. Because paper doesn't forget. Day 30. No payment. Day 60. No attempt. Day 89. My mother called. "Please," she whispered. "Just give us more time." I stood in my kitchen watching Lily color at the table. "Mom," I said gently, "I gave you 4 years. This will break us," she said. I took a breath. "You were given 1 moment," I replied. 1 sentence, 1 chance to say her name. My voice softened, but it didn't waver. "You chose not to." Day 90. We filed. The foreclosure wasn't revenge. It was procedure. Clean. Final. Everything changed. After that, lawyers got involved. The house couldn't be refinanced, couldn't be sold quietly. Every door closed. Because the contract was real. Even if my father pretended my daughter wasn't. 3 weeks later, they folded. The house went on the market. Settlement replaced the courtroom. At closing, we sat across from each other. No shouting, no drama, just signatures, page after page. My father didn't look at me once. My mother did. Her eyes were red, her voice small. "I'm still learning," she said. I nodded. "Call me when you're ready to say her name," I replied. The wire hit that afternoon. $192,450. Principal, interest, every cent. I didn't celebrate. I didn't feel victorious. I just redirected it. 2 days later, I opened a new account, a college fund. Beneficiary, Lily Grace Carter. I transferred the entire amount. Every dollar my father tried to control went to the child he tried to deny. That night, Lily sat beside me on the couch. "Mom," she said, "is Grandpa still mad?" I brushed her hair back gently. "Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes and take a long time to fix them." She nodded. Then she leaned against me. "I'm glad you're my mom." I smiled. "I'm glad you're my daughter." Thanksgiving that year was smaller, quieter, but real. People who showed up, people who stayed, people who said her name without hesitation. A week later, my mother called again. "Happy Thanksgiving, Lily," she said softly, and this time, she said her name. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a beginning, because in the end, this was never about money. It was about truth, about what we write down, what we stand by, and who we choose to protect when it matters most. If you've ever had to choose between keeping peace and protecting your child, you already know. Winter passed quietly. Not the kind of quiet that feels empty, but the kind that settles after a storm has already taken what it needed. My parents moved into a smaller condo on the edge of town. 2 bedrooms, 1 floor, no pine trees lining the driveway, no history in the walls, just space and consequences. I didn't visit, not yet, because distance isn't punishment. Sometimes it's clarity. Life moved forward the way it always does. Lily started school. Daniel got promoted. I went back to work like nothing had happened, except everything had. One evening, months later, I found Lily sitting on her bedroom floor, the same big sheet of paper spread out in front of her, the one where we had drawn our family tree. Branches wide, names written carefully. She had added something new. At the very edge of the page, 2 small names. She looked up at me. "Mom," she said, "can I put them here, for now?" I followed her finger. Grandma and Grandpa. Not in the center, not in the roots, just at the edge, waiting. I sat beside her. "You can put people wherever they earn their place," I told her softly. She nodded like that made perfect sense, because to her, it did. A week later my phone rang. My mother. I answered. Elena, she said, voice steady, but different, stronger. I said her name today. I didn't speak. I said it in front of your father, she continued. I told him, her name is Lily Grace, and she is my granddaughter. Silence filled the space between us. Not empty, full. What happened? I asked. He didn't argue, she said. He just didn't know what to say. I let out a slow breath. 4 years of silence. And finally, one sentence. I'm still learning, she added. I know, I said. We didn't rush anything after that. No sudden reunions, no perfect endings. Just small steps, careful ones. The first time she saw Lily again, she said her name immediately. No hesitation, no pause. And Lily smiled like children do when something simple feels right again. My father? He stayed quiet for a long time. Longer than I expected. Longer than I wanted. But one afternoon, months later, he stood awkwardly in our living room, holding a small box. He didn't look at me. He looked at Lily. This is for you, he said. His voice wasn't strong, but it wasn't dismissive either. She opened it. Inside was a small wooden music box. Simple, carefully made. Thank you, she said. Then, after a pause, what's my name? The room held its breath. He swallowed, looked at her, really looked this time. Lily Grace, he said quietly. And that was the first honest thing he had given her. Not an apology, not yet, but something real. That night, after everyone left, Lily climbed into my lap. Mom, she whispered, I think he's learning too. I kissed her forehead. Maybe he is, I said, and for the first time in a long time, I believed it. Because families don't always break in loud ways. Sometimes they crack slowly, silently, over years. And sometimes they rebuild the same way. One name, one choice, one moment at a time. I still keep that original folder. The contract, the signatures, the proof. But I renamed it. Not loan, not case, not default. Now it's called What I Protected. Because in the end, I didn't win anything. I didn't take anything. I simply made sure my daughter would never have to ask that question again. Am I real? And the answer will always be yes.